Welcome everyone to another episode at Benchmark Studios. We're really grateful that you're listening in or watching. And we have two very special guests today, partners in the work we do here to make Lancaster City a safer and healthier and happier community. We have the Lancaster County District Attorney, Heather Adams, and Deanna Weaver, the Program Director of Victim and Witness Services at the District Attorney's Office. Both of them have come today just to share some perspective with us on the nature of their work, and we have some questions lined up that will help hopefully illuminate how important their work is and how it's changing the community in ways that we might not all realize. So Heather and Deanna, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Appreciate you both. Of course, we also have Mr. Nathan Levise, my co-host. He has to be called Nathan today, so that's what he's going to get.
Appreciate it.
All right, DA Adams and Deanna, if you were to describe your office's mission in one sentence so that like a teenager could understand it, how would you describe the work you do, simply?
So I would say our mission is quite simply public safety. But to just add to that in a full sentence, we do that by prosecuting criminal cases on behalf of the citizens of Lancaster County.
Sure, it's good. Deanna, how about you and the work that you do?
Well, for victim witness services, I would say, especially to a teenager, we're here to walk with victims, inform them, make sure their rights are upheld, and equip them with tools to make their lives better.
Very good. So if we were to rewind a little bit and just learn a little bit about both of you, how did you get into this field of work? What brought you to this?
Yeah, so initially many decades ago, when I came out of law school, I really didn't know what law I wanted to practice, and I was able to clerk for a judge in Lancaster County. I'm from Lancaster. I grew up in Lidditz. And it was during that experience that I got to see all types of law. And I knew as an attorney that if I had to stand up in front of 12 people, a jury, right, and argue a point, I really needed to have conviction in what I was saying. And at that time, I identified with the role of a prosecutor, which is seeking justice. Excellent.
What does it mean to clerk for a judge?
So typically all of the judges have a law clerk that you can stay for a year, you can stay longer, but you help the judge do research. If the judge has a case that's going on appeal, you help that judge draft a written opinion. So you're putting down the facts from the trial and the law and drawing some legal conclusions from that.
Interesting. So it's a pretty broad approach and lets you see a lot of different parts of the justice system.
Yes.
Who was the judge that you clerked for?
Judge Cullen, who is now retired.
Interesting. That's awesome. Right here at the downtown.
Yep. Yes.
Neat. And Deanna, how about you? How did you get into this work?
Well, it started a long time ago. I was a music therapist, music educator. That was my degree was in, but I kind of always wanted to be a social worker, but paired that with music. And that eventually led me to work at the domestic violence shelter in York. And I worked with the kids in the transitional housing program. And for where I was much younger then, and I had a different kind of worldview, and it was a little too sad for me because the kids in those situations can't make the choices to make things better. So a job opened up as a victim advocate, a legal advocate, and I loved that. I did that for most of the 10 years I was there because I felt like I was helping people make their lives better, and it was much more positive. And so here I am. I think that's what keeps me in this work. And on those days when you're just not sure you want to get up and go to work, you need to remind yourself, I might make somebody's life better today, just by something I say or just listening to them or giving them, like I said, the tools to make things better. So.
Well, you both are in leadership roles now, and along that journey, through some of what you just described, was there anything that helped really shape your leadership? Someone that mentored you or someone that coached you along the way that helped prepare you for the roles that you both have now?
That's a good question. All through my career, I was a prosecutor for 15 years, and then I did defense work for about 4 years before I took this role, was elected to this role. And I never knew that I wanted to be the district attorney. Some people do. Some people aspire to that. I was quite happy doing my job, trying to do it well. So as far as a leadership aspect, I feel like I I put myself in that position and had to learn a lot. But looking back, specifically to the role of a prosecutor, my first mentor in York, Deanna and I both started in York and now are here. But as far as the role of prosecutor, he told me, we always do the right thing for the right reason, and that we are not only, arguing for the public safety for the people of Pennsylvania, right? But we have to protect everyone's rights, and that includes the defendant. And I've never lost sight of that.
Interesting. Can I ask what made you shift from doing so much work as a prosecutor then to go to the defense side? I mean, because that's both sides. Just for those who don't know, that's both sides in the courtroom.
Yeah. So at that time, I was working for the Attorney General's office, which is the state prosecutor. I was covering about 9 counties that surround the river. But after my husband and I had a baby, we moved from York to Lidditz back to be closer to family. And I was doing that commute. The commute wasn't awful, but I just felt too far away as a new mom, being up in Harrisburg. And I said to my husband, I loved my job there, loved the people that I work with, but I wanted to get back to Lancaster. Yep. And for me, that opportunity was taking a job as a criminal defense attorney.
Is it tough to be on the other side?
No, because it's still, some people would say to me, gosh, how can you do that and just try to get people off? I said, well, that's not my job. My job is to make sure my client knows what the government, the Commonwealth, what evidence they have against that person, and also that they fully understand their rights and responsibilities and their options, because they need to make an informed decision. Whatever decision they make, they need to be educated and informed, and I enjoyed helping them through that process.
It sounds like the work of justice is the same across, but different outcomes, but you're doing the same type of work.
Correct.
Which is interesting. Yeah. I haven't heard anyone articulate it like that. I didn't think of it that way. You just think of it as one side's trying to get the person off, other side's trying to get the person. But that's not true.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, Deanna, any mentors or leaders that really shaped who you are today in your leadership role?
Yeah, I thought about that, and it's not really any one person. I mean, I've been in victim services for over 30 years, and I think the people that have just influenced me the most in life I've had a number of supervisors who had a lot of integrity, first of all, and who demonstrated the actual skills that they were supervising. Because I don't really listen that well. If you haven't done the work, it's kind of hard for me to have you as a supervisor. But I think, first of all, but they also then allowed me to develop my own style as an advocate and do the work that we were all, the same mission we're all working toward. And people at the domestic violence shelter, the comprehensive center in York where I worked, and then of course here we had a phenomenal director as well. So they just set good examples, but at the same time lived out the mission, which inspires you then as a team member to do the same.
Yeah. So. Do both of you in your field, are there young people coming into the field right now? You noticed that? Or is there a challenge there?
Staffing is a challenge, particularly with the prosecutors, new prosecutors. Excuse me. So staffing is a challenge. We do have, people that are interested in the field. We try to focus on our intern program to really develop that as a streamline into our office. So that's our focus right now. I would say, to be quite honest, after 2020, after COVID, where a lot of people in law school were learning from home, and then after George Floyd was murdered, I think there was a cloud over law enforcement, and I think that drifted to our office, unfortunately, and we saw a huge drop in applicants after 2020, and I think it was a combination of both of those things. It's starting to turn around, so we're starting to see interest again. It's a great job. It gives you trial experience, whereas if you go into the civil world, you don't often see that. So it's a great job. Yeah. A great sense of purpose behind it.
It's a lot of hours.
It can be. It can be. Yes.
It can be. Yeah. Well, some of my questions got me off track. Let me just take a quick look here. Here we go. All right. I'm interested where both of you land with this. What are your top 2 or 3 priorities for Lancaster County right now in the work that you do? What are the big things that you're working on?
So, yeah, when you say Lancaster County, I have to mention staffing again, only because it's so important to our office. And it doesn't sound like a program. It's not a program. But really to have a fully functional and efficient office, that's something that we're really concentrating on. As far as like a program, I would say our threat advisory group that we have is one of the things that is really taking off right now. So we have a multidisciplinary team between county offices, so my office, BHDS, behavioral health, drug and alcohol, probation, and then law enforcement. The goal is, if we think about mass shootings, okay, police departments across Lancaster County should be prepared to address that. God forbid it happen.
Yep.
But this group, the Threat Advisory Group, is trying to identify those that are on the pathway to violence and stopping it before it gets there. So if we have somebody in one of the school districts, and I'll give schools an example, but it doesn't have to be limited to schools, could be churches as well. If we would hear somebody threatened another student or threatened the school, that the school-wide, right, safety, this group would gather together and really work together to figure out what that person needs. Did that person, one, commit a crime? There could be charges filed. But if not, or even so, we make sure that the right services are going to be offered to that student or person so that we address, again, that pathway and stop and get them off the pathway before something horrible happens.
I have a question about this because we hear about the end result of community violence, and sometimes it's these horrific school shootings. From your perspective, do we see enough? Is it true that we do see warning signs? Like we can catch these things?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
So indicators are out there.
Yes, and now we have, for example, if you have juvenile probation or someone that's been serviced by drug and alcohol or BHDS, we have ways that we can communicate with each other so that now everyone's sharing information so that we have the whole picture, and that's been incredibly important in trying to help someone and trying to identify just where they are on that pathway.
Yeah, so we're not just going after them. We're going to try and support them if we see an indicator.
Correct.
Wow. It's important work. Deanna, your big priorities, the things you're working on, I mean, specifically the victim side, too.
I think really with our department, there's still a lack of awareness that we even exist until a victim is a victim. So it, to me, would be very helpful, and I think our media liaison does a good job of highlighting every now and then, here's what victim witness is, here's what they do, here's what victims' rights are. And that has to be a priority for us so that when someone's friend or loved one is a victim, they have any idea where to turn. And we've done a lot of work, not just us locally, but as a state with law enforcement so that they're getting that information out there. One of our challenges is certainly a lack of availability of counseling so that we can do better referrals. There's a waiting list a lot of times. There's a real lack of bilingual counselors. For us as staff, too, I would love to have more bilingual advocates. We have, over the years, had more. That's our current opening, and that is always a challenge. Getting people to stay, as Heather said, in today's world is more of a challenge than it used to be.
It's tough.
We definitely have people applying for these jobs, but I think to get the full picture of what it's like is difficult to convey during interviews and things like that. So maintaining a stable staff, which, I mean, we're very fortunate, don't get me wrong, in the county as far as our longevity goes. But when, over the next 5 years, some of our longest term people may be moving on. So I'm kind of starting to really focus on that succession planning too, to make sure that there's consistent services that continue. And I think statewide there have been some improvements for victims in legislation, so we've had to adapt our services to that. Would better collaboration with the Office of Victim Advocate at the state due to one of the acts that passed in the past couple years. Getting better input from victims on bail was a result of another act that was probably 2 or 3 years ago. So we just learned to adapt our services and fit them into the system so that victims' voices are still heard.
So there's two. So really, you are a whole separate team from the ADAs who are in the courtroom, because you're supporting the victim while they're going to bring justice to the person who perpetrated the crime. Interesting.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And we work with not only the victims and the witnesses, but then we also serve the assistant DAs as coordinating things and seeking input, being there. I mean, they're much busier as far as being in court or working on briefs or whatever they have to do. So we field the calls, and then we act as a liaison there with the victims.
What's the hiring process? Like, I know when we hire here, we run them through a whole bunch of different type of questions, scenarios, just to see like how they would react and handle certain situations. What's the hiring process for you guys? Like, I don't know. I would be very I would be very emotional doing that type of work that you guys do, and I would probably be a lot biased when it comes to like making the decision or something. Like, if I know someone did that crime and like this family's hurt and I see the other side of it, I'd be like, what can we do to make sure that this guy pays for what he did, right? So like, what's the hiring process as far as like making sure that you don't get people like me, most likely on your staff, that can't take his emotions and put them beside him, right? What's the hiring process?
Yeah, you almost remind me of like picking a juror, right? Like, we want a juror that can be fair and impartial. I mean, basically, for attorneys, if we have someone apply, we have a 2-step interview process, and now where they meet 3 of my executive staff, and then if they like them, essentially they come to meet me. But there's a criminal background. We have to do criminal background checks even for our attorneys. And then we've also added a step recently where you have to come and do an opening statement in front of a few of our attorneys.
That's nice.
But we want people that have that passion to be a prosecutor, and obviously, if law enforcement has arrested someone, right, then it's because really that we believe we have the evidence to take to a jury to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which is our legal standard, that person did it.
Right.
So at that point, I wouldn't say it's bias, but it's a commitment to doing your duty and to seeking justice, which our position would be is a conviction.
Right.
And for the victim advocates, we have a similar process. The deputy director and I usually meet with them initially, the candidates. We're looking for people with really all kinds of backgrounds. I prefer a degree in something, but you can't manufacture the people skills. You can teach them all about the criminal justice system. So I don't care if their degree is not related directly to what we do. It is, do they have the compassion and the people skills to deal with this kind of work, and are they tough enough? Honestly, I have gotten, because hiring is not one of my favorite things at all, because you just don't know what you're getting until you're in it. And I have gotten a lot tougher, a lot more, I think, frank with people. You really do have to be tough to do this work, but at the same time, you have to have a level of sensitivity.
Right.
It helps victims if you get emotional to some degree, but you can't get so emotional that they're comforting you.
Right.
But, I mean, we want them to see, this upsets me too, what happened to you.
Yeah.
And that's very helpful because they don't get that from society so much anymore.
Right.
And, but at the same time, you have to have enough balance so that you're in control of the situation, you remain calm, and you're able to do your work. So it is hard to select people. Then we also have them meet with additional advocates and a couple of the attorneys as a second kind of step, and then the big background investigation that we do and references and things like that. And then they get a lot of on-the-job training, and then there's required training they have to go to at the state. And hopefully we've made a good choice and giving them a realistic expectation so that they stick around, because you do invest a lot in new employees. You know that. It's like that anywhere, and you just hope that they stay, right?
Yeah.
So it's a real challenge because it is hard work.
What are some of the misconceptions about the work that you do? Because we get the chance to sit and talk today, and we can learn a lot. But for people who don't, they might just hear what comes out in a press conference. What are the things that you want people to know? What are these misconceptions about the nature of your work and the challenges?
Yeah, one of the top ones I thought about is kind of related to the press conference, in that I don't think the general public knows that as prosecutors, we have rules of ethics that limit what we can and can't say about a case, especially in a press conference situation. And so I think that's a big question as to, why didn't they say this, or the brief answer is we are limited by our rules of professional responsibility to not make certain comments that would tend to influence the public or a potential juror as to a certain way in that case. And I take that very seriously. Obviously, if a misstep could lead to some type of license, issue. So I take that very serious, and I think people just generally don't understand that.
That means you have to, so what it means in practice is you can't stand there answering every single question that you're being asked with the cameras on you.
Yeah, so many times we say, I'm unfortunately I'm not able to respond to that. One of the biggest ones is, did the defendant say anything when he was arrested? Well, I can't say no, he did, or sometimes there might be an omission in the affidavit, but everyone has the right to remain silent, right? The Fifth Amendment, you have the right to remain silent, and it can't be held against you. So we are not allowed to comment on any invocation of your right to have an attorney.
But you still need to do the press conference.
Yes, we do the press conference, and we share basically anything that's public information. Yeah. So what is put down in the affidavit of probable cause in their criminal complaint, we can share with the public.
Interesting. Were you nervous the first time you did a press conference?
Sure. I mean, I think, you get a sense of nervousness or butterflies. Yeah. You get more used to it the more you do it, but there's still some butterflies there, sure.
Yeah. And I suppose you just get used to the fact that you're going to go in there, you're going to get questions you can't answer, and you just have to say, I'm not at liberty to answer that.
Right.
I can answer that.
Yes.
What about like so majority of people I would talk to, and people I would ask, they would say the DAs are you're the bad guy. You guys are bad. You want to lock everyone up. You want to put everyone in jail. That's what your goal is. Well, what would you say? Do you think that you're the bad guys?
No, I mean, so decades ago, right, it used to be said that the prosecutors wore the white hats, meaning we were the good guys. And I do think the image of prosecutors has changed, and I think that's specifically probably since 2020. I wouldn't say that's accurate. I mean, I guess there's a portion of the population who may always think that if they're committing crimes, right. Maybe. But no, I mean, look,
I thought it before.
Our duty is to seek justice in each and every case, and that looks different for different cases. So I'm incredibly proud of the fact that my office has a number of diversion programs, so basically programs that give someone a second chance and allow them to clear their record. For first-time offenders, we have a program. We have a program at the Magisterial District Justice Office, which is the first level of court, that's geared towards those that have substance use disorders who have committed a crime, that will allow them to get treatment for that addiction. And again, if they complete the program, the charges go away. We have treatment courts. We have 3 treatment courts in Lancaster County: Veterans Court, Drug Court, and Mental Health Court. Again, same thing. Your charges are reduced or dismissed if you complete those programs. I truly believe in second chances. Right. But I also, truly believe that when we're talking about violent crimes and personal injury crimes, that we need to hold that person responsible, because they are not only inflicted pain and are, an injury to that victim in particular, but it's a danger to Lancaster County as a whole.
So do you kind of feel like we missed, like people are, so I agree to like lock people up. If you did something, you did something. Every time I did something, I know I did it. I know I was going to get locked up. And then when I got caught, most of my cases, I just pled guilty. I was like, yeah, I did it. So I'm able to accept the fact and acknowledge the fact that I did it. But to a certain extent, I feel like some of these kids and some of these people that we're talking about, they feel like they didn't have a shot, or they don't have any other way to do that. Do we feel like we're failing them before? I feel like we're failing them sometimes, like before they even go do a crime. They feel like they have to do the crime, or like how does that come into play?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I mean, the part of benchmark is here, right? I think I wish there were more services and programs in Lancaster County to address exactly what you're talking about. We can use our forfeiture funds. So when our drug task force goes out and arrests a drug dealer, and they have cash, we can seize that cash. If the court finds that cash was illegal, like illegal gotten goods, right? They can forfeit that money and give it to the Commonwealth. We are allowed to use that money for community-based crime and drug fighting programs, and I love to be able to share that money with nonprofits. We've granted to Benchmark. And so exactly what you're saying, just try to support those programs that are in our community that are trying to help people either with drug addictions or boys and girls clubs we've given money to, that just have programs that if kids are participating in, they're less likely to commit crimes.
Right. I think that's important to highlight too. Like, you're investing in the community as well for these prevention programs, so that we can try to help and do our job and do our piece, so it doesn't they don't have to go see a district attorney.
Yeah, I'm curious about, I mean, you've supported us in ways that we're incredibly grateful for, but a lot of the assistant district attorneys are okay in court when the decision is to allow us to supervise a kid upon release. What makes the office feel comfortable with a program like this? And it doesn't have to be Benchmark, but we're serving kids who have these very serious charges, and some have hurt people very seriously, and I'm sure there's victims on those sides that you're working with. But how do you come to trust a place like this that can supervise a kid? I mean, and sometimes that's a really tough thing.
Yeah.
So
I think it's reputation, right? And it's past demonstrations of what you've been able to do. Certainly probation is well-versed in the programs that are juvenile probation, are well-versed in the programs that are available. And we have a good working relationship with them so that we can listen to them as well. But I mean, I think my staff generally, and it's not just because I've, preached this or anything, but I think a lot of the newer assistant district attorneys that are coming in want to see those programs because they know justice is about something more. Yes. It just doesn't start with court. It starts before that, and that we have to look at all angles and to really make Lancaster County safer.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Deanna, let's talk a little bit about something else that I don't think is well understood, which is the journey that someone goes through if they have been a victim of crime. What's the ideal path? How do you support someone who's been a victim?
Well, the ideal path is they report the crime to the police, hopefully close in time to when it happened, but as you know, it doesn't always happen. So when they're ready, they report the crime. And then the police give them the information about our services. Hopefully, especially if it's a serious crime, the police will reach out to us and say, hey, this person could really benefit from your services. Because the earlier we make a connection with them, the better. We can dispel, there are a lot of myths to dispel.
Like what?
And, that everyone does go to jail and that everyone will stay in jail. That is definitely not true.
Preparing them, if I've been victimized and I'm looking to you to get the person who hurt me, you have to prepare me that person might not.
They'll be out on bail almost always, with conditions, hopefully, but almost always they're going to be out on some kind of bail. And So giving them accurate information. When someone becomes a crime, you're going along your daily life. Say you're driving to work one day and there's a road rage incident, because it's very common these days. And all of a sudden maybe someone rammed your car and injured you, or pointed a gun at you and just really traumatized you. And so then your life is kind of turned upside down at that moment, because there's this trauma that occurs. It messes with your brain because trauma affects the way you think. And so then you can't function right for a while, right? And it depends on what happened to you, how often it happened to you, who you were before the crime, how you're going to react, because trauma response is very individual. But that's what happens. So your life's turned upside down. There's a lot of chaos. And we're there to, first of all, offer them support, listen to what happened to them, whatever they want to share with us, and explain the process, because information is the first thing that starts to restore some of that control. And accurate information is really important. People come to us with what they think is going to happen from what they've seen on TV, which is completely unrealistic. The cases are not resolved, sadly, in one episode. Cases often take over a year to be resolved. And when people hear that, I mean, that's troubling to them, to say the least. And they'll think that we're going to go to court and everything will be done. And we do a lot of translating of the legal terms. So hopefully we've made that connection. And then the next thing is we'll explain the next steps. If they're arrested, then they're going to have a preliminary hearing. We'll go with you. We'll explain what the prosecutors are saying, because until you're in the middle of this, you probably don't know any of this stuff, that we even exist, how the process works. Juvenile court's a little bit different, so then we go to court. That's a little bit faster. It used to be a lot faster, but explaining what their rights are. The difference between defendants' rights and victims' rights is pretty stark. Victims' rights didn't start until 1984. The Victims of Crime Act was the first time that victims' rights were actually legislated. And of course, defendants' rights go back to the Constitution in the 1700s.
What was it before that for victims?
You got me. It probably depended on where they were. And so, not to say they were mistreated everywhere, but there was lack of consistent services. There was lack of information for victims. They probably had to fight to get it.
It's like, sorry this happened to you.
Yeah.
We'll take care of it from here.
There have been so many improvements since that time. So now victims have rights, but they're still statutory. They're not constitutional. So if we violate a victim's right, they get basically an apology. There are certain things now, because there have been some improvements in legislation, where they have standing to have some remedies, but it's not like a defendant's rights. If they're violated, we're doing something over again, or that conviction or disposition is, thrown out, and we have to start over again. So it's really important that victims have that information. The police are the first ones in. They give the information, then we come along to try and walk them through the whole process from start to finish and beyond, in the post-conviction part too. And it makes a big difference, because if they don't have anybody there with them, they can easily be overlooked. They have a right to give input. So we're there to say, wait a minute, you can't just go on with this guilty plea. They need to be notified of it. They need to be there if they want. If you're going to reduce charges, depending on the case, the certain types of crime, they have a right to give input. Mm-hmm. So we're doing, hopefully, all those things in a timely fashion so they can start to get, again, some control back in their life. Our goal, I feel like we've succeeded as advocates if we can incorporate what has happened to them into their life story. When they come to us, it's everything. It's all they can think about, and they can't work, they can't properly care for their kids, whatever it is. If we can help them along the way, equip them with whatever they need, whether it's counseling, just a better support system, information, hopefully by the time they've reached the end of their situation or the end of the case, or whatever their recovery looks like, they can just, it's something that happened to them, but it's not everything. It doesn't define them any longer.
Contextualize it a little bit.
So that's how you like define the like success in your job.
It is to me, because there's not a lot of, we don't have a lot of control over anything else.
Right.
And relationships with people define that much more than the outcome of a case. I have had cases where the very worst thing happened, where someone was acquitted of murder. But because we had formed a good relationship, a good rapport with them at the very beginning, and they could see that the prosecutor, our office, was all working toward one goal, and that was justice for their loved one, even though it turned out as the worst case scenario for that family, they still appreciated what we had done, and it still helped them in their recovery process. I mean, I remember seeing someone a year later, and I thought, what do you do after that happens? And that family member was doing remarkably well, and said at that time, I really appreciate everything you did. So it's about relationships. It is not about wins and losses in the courtroom.
Right.
So that connection is really important to help someone heal from trauma.
Then do you outsource a lot of the stuff, like services, or do you really just like do the work yourself?
That's a great question. We do the court-connected stuff, for lack of a better description. So we make sure that they know what's happening, that they're informed about proceedings and all of that. But we're not therapists, so we refer out for counseling. We refer out for help with housing, help with childcare. We work with the Victims Compensation Assistance Program for out-of-pocket expenses regarding medical, counseling, funeral, all of that. So that's a state program. We kind of act as an intermediary. But we do, outsource, for lack of a better word. We make a lot of referrals to community agencies.
So both of you are operating in these, with policy and statute and being sensitive to all of that. But if you could tweak one, or if you could tweak something at the policy level or our state statutes that would better improve community safety or outcomes for victims, what would that be if you could change something?
Yeah. I think Deanna's answer might be different than mine. I've thought about this, and with the small exception of, small tweaks, I feel like, generally speaking, we have a lot of laws, and we have a lot of crimes. Again, not to say that there's not improvements, but to really improve public safety at this point, I really think it falls outside the criminal justice system, and we need better programs. We need better programs.
Yeah, because not everyone connects with a benchmark,
right?
But people should have something to connect to, whatever their thing is.
I think that,
even stronger families, like we can go there too. Like we need stronger families too.
That's a good point. We have lots of laws and still have lots of crimes.
Right.
And maybe going deeper down that path.
I don't think people understand the laws though. Like, you remember we teach I forgot the curriculum.
We teach
completely.
legal street law, legal life skills. You ever heard of that?
No.
It's this thing out of DC. It's old now, but we've been teaching it for a long time, and it's just meant to take basic legal. There's even lessons in there about how to read a residential lease. What are the legal life skills that you need? That's what Nate's talking about.
Okay.
It's a curriculum we use.
Yeah.
Like, we talk to the kids and we tell them, like, if you get pulled over, this is how you move, this is how you act, this is what you ask for. Can I reach for this? We teach stuff like that. Because honestly, a lot of the kids don't even know. Like, when we talk about certain laws and stuff like that, they don't know their own rights and their, like, the laws that they're breaking. So I think if there was more, like, if it was, like, if they knew what was going on, I think there might be, like, less crime,
I think what Nate and I see a lot is that. It's just like, who's going to teach you, the child, about basic legal things?
Right.
This is legal, this is not. Not, I heard this from this person, but
Right,
who's going to
yeah.
be your authority? I don't think those things are taught in school.
At all. Because when you
don't
go to
think.
jail, everyone's a lawyer.
Yes.
All your cellies, everyone's like, nah, bro, this is gonna happen during your case, and it never happened. Like, I go into the courtroom and that's not what the judge said. So when I go back to my cell, I'm gonna tell my cellie like, hey, that's not what happened at all.
Yeah.
But when you get locked up, everyone's a lawyer, so you know you don't really know what's going on, and a lot of times too, even for like the not the victim, but the person that's getting prosecuted. I don't know what they were talking about in the courtroom. At all. A lot of my cases, the language, like understanding like what they were talking about, I didn't know what they were talking about. And a lot of times I had a public defender, Deanna.
Kelleher.
Yeah. And she's told me she was the only public defender, my only lawyer that was like, if you have any questions and you don't know what's going on, write them down on this piece of paper. And she helped me understand what was going on. But other than that though, I had no idea what was going on. And I just heard time served, and if you plead guilty right now, yes sir, I'm guilty. Give me time served so I can leave right now.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, even a lot of our form documents have a lot of legalese in them, and it really is up to counsel at that point to take the time to explain that to you.
Right.
And so you're making an informed decision.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree, there are so many laws that there are some things that could be a little better about some of them, or they could be better upheld or better enforced. But one thing that would be a small tweak that would mean the most to so many victims across the board is restitution, which is not an exciting thing, but it is probably the number one complaint across the board, whether it's a victim of retail theft or some aggravated assault. When am I going to see the restitution? Restitution is a huge part of restoration. So it's a big deal in the juvenile justice system as well as criminal. I just wish there was better enforcement of that. If you owe back child support, they'll garnish your wages right away.
Yes.
And they will also seize money in your bank account. And, if you think about it, you haven't committed a crime in that case. So I just wish there was equal enforcement for restitution when you have committed a crime.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're able to do those things. It just takes so long before wages are attached, and we don't seize assets, and we don't collect at the county prison. They do collect in state prison. So that's one little thing. That's really the only thing though that I thought of. Again, not too earth shattering, but because I agree with you, I think it really starts in the home, and I don't think we should be surprised when we see so many kids in the juvenile justice system. If you think about absent parents, very little human connection, growing up on screens,
Oh, yeah.
It's a terrible combination.
We were just talking about that.
No wonder we've
Yeah.
seen so many kids involved in the juvenile justice system. Yeah.
We talk about social media all the time. It's what we point to as most of the
Yeah.
cause of
Yeah.
the issues that we end up dealing with.
Yeah, it's scary.
Things you have to overcome.
Yeah, I work at McCaskey, and getting some of these kids to like form a circle, let's have a conversation. Like we take their phones when they come into our program, but you can see them like reaching in their pocket, like if your phone's not there, but it's locked up. So you got no choice but to have this conversation with me. But yeah, they don't know how to talk. They don't know how to be a friend. They don't know how to, it's different. It's wild. It's wild to see.
Yeah.
All right, I've got two questions about partnerships because we all do this work with others. But so the first one is what partnerships are you really proud of? And DA Adams, I'm thinking some of this threat assessment stuff is cool. You told us about that, but what other partnerships are you proud of?
Yeah. It's the community-based partnerships. One specifically that came to mind was Second Chances and Compass Mark. They helped create the diversion program at the MDJ level that I was speaking of for those with substance use disorder. Previously, the program was run out of California. It wasn't very effective. It was very costly. It cost nearly $500 to go through, and that's really for the person, and that's a barrier. So when I came in, I was a drug prosecutor, and I was on our drug treatment court in York. So That's always kind of been my specialty, and I just wanted to see a better program. I wanted the services to be in Lancaster County, and I wanted it to be more effective, and I wanted the people participating in the program to be able to get treatment if they needed it. So with the help of Blueprints, which is a drug and alcohol provider, we've created, it's called Pathways to Recovery, where if you've committed an offense, typically lower level offense related to your substance abuse disorder, you can, if you're eligible for the program, and you don't have to be a first-time offender, because I recognize that, many times it takes a number of times to go through treatment before it sticks. But if you complete 8 hours of community service, you're given a level of care assessment. If treatment is required, they will assist that person with getting them into even inpatient if necessary. And if they complete the complete the program, the charges go away. Compass Mark provides the educational piece to that, the prevention piece, and we were able to give forfeiture money to both of those programs to help launch. But that program's been pretty successful, and I'm pretty proud of making it more Lancaster based.
Yeah, you should be. We've heard about that and know the good work that Compass Mark and the Blueprints and you do together.
Yeah,
that's a great example. Deanna, how about you? Partnerships that you're proud of?
Well, I mean, and none that I, helped initiate. These are long-standing, but things that have made a really big difference, I think, in our community. I thought of a few of them. Our connection or collaboration with the Plain community in Lancaster County, which has been going on, I would say probably 20 years or so, is wonderful. I mean, and I think it's come a long way as far as prosecuting those crimes when the offender is Amish or Plain Mennonite, or when the victim is from those communities. We have open discussion with elders from both. There are 2 separate meetings. We meet usually twice a year, and there are prosecutors there, people from BHDS, there are people from juvenile and adult probation, and a couple other law enforcement. There's a couple. So the men that are on these groups, I mean, the relationships have developed to such a point where they'll reach out to you outside of the meeting if some situation comes up and they're just looking for, some advice or input. So I think that has really been a real asset to the community. The Children's Alliance is another thing that when I first came here, probably, so almost 20 years ago, children advocacy centers were a kind of a new thing. York had started one, and the whole point of that is so the victim doesn't have to keep telling their story to this person, that person, that person. Because it's terrible for the victim. It's also not good for a criminal case. So they coordinate in child sexual assault and child abuse cases, but now we also use them when a child has been a witness in a major crime, so that it's a forensic interview who is trained to interview kids. That's a fantastic resource. We also have, this is a little one, we also have a therapy or a support dog, who came to us, I think, 7 years ago now. Yeah. And that's been a really helpful thing to have. She's made a difference, especially in the cases with kids. Yeah. But I mean, some people just are dog people, so it helps to have a dog when you're sitting around waiting for a verdict. So that's Canine Partners for Life is who we partnered with for that. And then, of course, the Human Trafficking Task Force, I think, which has started under D.A. Adams, we've seen a lot of growth there, too, and that's fantastic. All of these programs are just, when you were talking about Compass Mark and things, those are, even though victims aren't necessarily involved in that, those are exactly the kind of resources that they want to see. Because victims will say, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. Beyond their own victimization. So the more we can do in the treatment courts and things like that to get to the root of the problem, that's how we're hopefully going to put an end to some of this stuff at least.
Yeah, there's so much more going on than people know, which is why I wanted to ask both of you about that. But the second partnership piece is, who do you feel like you need to, if you could get some people around the table, some organizations or some entities, who would those, like the conversations that need to be had are, like who do you think who do we need to sit down and talk with that's currently not, a part of this process to improve community safety or take care of victims? Like, who's missing from the table, or is everyone doing exactly good?
I mean, maybe with respect to grant funding, that would be our legislators, right? Just for them to know how important it is. But locally, I think the topic for me right now would be juvenile violence, quite honestly, because I see grant opportunities come, and it's really hard to try to figure out, from my perspective as a prosecutor, what a program would look like, or what's our piece of that program, so that we could try to apply for money to help Lancaster.
Yep.
So I would like to see more focus and more group discussions. Obviously law enforcement, the city, programs like yours,
Yep.
Different Boys and Girls program. I mean, just different programs so that we could somehow jointly work together to address the juvenile violence.
Yeah, to get ahead of it,
Yes.
to be on the prevention side instead of
Yes.
the intervention side.
Yeah. We need at least 10 more programs like this.
Yeah.
And victim impact panels need to be part of all these kind of programs.
Interesting. What's a
I
victim
don't
impact
know
panel?
if they're happening because I don't know all the ins and outs, but they need to hear from either survivors directly or someone speaking on behalf of them. Like, this is what happened when you did that.
Interesting.
Because I think, especially with youth, if you can get them to understand the impact, it may make a difference. The human side of the crime. You weren't just breaking into that person's car or house. Here's what you did. That child couldn't sleep in their room after that. They went back to, at 6 years of age, they went back to sleeping with mom and dad because you broke into that house and you took that away from them. They need to hear, they need to see the face of a victim and hear from them firsthand, this is what it did. Because I think that, again, youth, we're not dealing with three-dimensional people, right? We're dealing with the stuff that's on the screens. And when it comes to crime, they really need to hear that. And I think sometimes it can make an impact on them, especially if it's early on. Maybe the first crime, right? Before they're way down the line and just feel like now they're just destined to go to East King Street.
Yep.
That's the last thing we want.
Right.
So I think your programs are phenomenal, and we need more of programs like this one. But that, to me, is a piece that might be missing from some of the programs, too.
I want to ask about the victim panel, because I think that would be interesting for some of our kids, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think our kids ever taught? I don't know. I'm not aware of.
I never thought. Anytime I was like doing stuff, I ain't never think of the victim, ever, at all.
But if you had dialogue with the victim, do you think that would have?
I think it probably would have stopped a lot of other stuff that I did, for sure. Because I'd have been like, yeah, I didn't know it did all that. You're right. Like, even breaking into, my mom just got her car broken into, and they tried to steal her car out in York. My mom just moved from Georgia out here. She's been struggling, stuff like that, right? So I came out of pocket and paid for my mom's $300 window. I don't got $300 to give my mom.
Right.
I got kids. I'm taking care of my responsibilities and stuff like that, right? So, and I doubt that person that was jumping in the car, he probably got kids to himself that he's trying to feed himself, or, whatever the case may be. So, but I don't think that he knew that you broke into a 53-year-old lady's car that, she got some soap making stuff in there. I don't know. Maybe it'd have changed his mind. But for sure, I think that if I would have talked to some of the victims and stuff like that, just understanding it a little bit, because really, like, honestly, it came from like a place of like selfishness. Like, I need this. I'm going to take this. No one's gonna stop me until I got stopped by the cops, and then.
It is part of ADVO's process. If who's the restorative justice provider here in Lancaster, and so all the juvenile cases have to go through that process, but they can elect not to, And sometimes the victims don't want to. It might not be the right time or the right setting. So I think some of the other programs could have those kind of things going on. They always did it in DUI cases, had victim impact panels so that the DUI offenders could see, hey, this is what you did. But it can be really effective, I think,
Yeah, I do so.
in some
That was
other
going to be my
programs.
question was why is that not happening right now? It makes sense. Why is it not happening? But you're saying sometimes people don't. If the victim doesn't want to be a part of the panel, you can't force them to come and sit.
What if you changed it though? What if it wasn't like a panel and they had to come up and get up there and speak? What if it was like you could record their voice and just play them talking?
Could that be done or not?
Well, and I think it's much more likely to be bought into for if it's with the kids that you already have formed these relationships with.
Right.
If it's a facilitator that they've just met, I can see why sometimes the kids are like, no, thanks, I don't want to do this.
Right.
And it might make victims feel a little safer if it's someone you've already been working with. But there can be other people. It doesn't necessarily have to be that victim, but somebody else can speak to that issue and what it causes too. It's just something I think that might be really helpful.
I think so. I mean, we don't have that as a component of our program, but if we did, we could certainly find a way to help kids and families through that process if we had either a way to connect with the victims or to have some recording from them.
Yeah, I think it just shifts the perspective a little bit. You think real short term, what's right in front of you. So then here's someone on the other side, because you don't think about the other side when you're doing it at all. Even when you get locked up for it, you're not thinking about the other side. You're still thinking about your situation, what you're going through, and how you're going to get out of it. So just to hear the other side I feel like a lot of kids are probably slow down. And if you give them the opportunity to this is what happened. This is the ripple effect of what you did. It didn't just affect that person. It affected this person, this person, this person, right? So just like my brother recently just got killed. It didn't just affect me, his brothers, his sisters. It affected the entire family. All our nephews don't want to go to, our grandma's house. My brother just got killed on the corner. So I think, the ripple effect of all that stuff, and they don't deserve that, They're still kids. But the truth is no one thinks of that far into it. I never did.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do a better job. We could do a better job in that area if we could make victims feel comfortable with it and if we had ways to facilitate it.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing now we have way more questions than we have time for, but I do want to ask you both just because I want to frame this. We've talked about a lot of different things, but for both of you and your radars, what are you seeing? D. Adams, you said youth violence. What are the major, when I come into work today, I know I need to be focused on these issues. Is youth violence really the main thing that we're working on right now, or is it trafficking, or what are the main issues for us in Lancaster County that we're dealing with?
I don't know that it's one or two. I will say, and again, I'm more of an administrator now, right? Yeah. But I would love to see improvements in juvenile youth violence. I would love to see improvements and more communication about domestic violence and the impact that has in our homes and across Lancaster County. But there are so many things, right? Our human trafficking task force as well has been working hard, and we're really, I think, making inroads on that particular crime in Lancaster County anyway. But yeah, DV, domestic violence, and youth violence, I think, are two areas that could stand to be improved and talked about more. And the general public needs to be educated more on.
We run into problems with domestic violence cases with jurors, and I think it is because the public does not understand strangulation, for one. That was a charge that was added because of the severity of it, but jurors don't seem to get it. So
hold on, I have to understand that. So jurors don't. So when you select jurors, because this is, I'm speaking from my wife being in law school and learning a little bit about this. So a juror has to be impartial. So if it's a lawsuit about a cafeteria, and I'm a juror coming in and I say I always hated food at the cafeteria, then I'm not a good juror. A juror who comes in and says, well, I neither liked nor disliked food at the cafeteria, that would be a good juror. That's an impartial juror, right?
Yes. I will clarify, though, that even if you didn't like the food at the cafeteria, if you would agree that when you hear the facts and evidence of this case, because you can't use your personal experiences, only what's admitted through the witness stand, could you be fair and impartial? And if you say yes, then you're an okay juror in my book.
Okay, then I am an okay juror.
Yeah.
So explain to me how jurors are not understanding things about DV?
Correct.
They're thinking strangulation's not that big of a deal?
I think people don't get that the person sitting in front of you today could have died.
I think from a domestic violence perspective, I think the majority of the general public, they don't understand the cycle of abuse. They don't understand that a victim who may have had visible injuries is now on the stand and not wanting to talk about that or trying to make excuses as to why they said they were injured, because maybe they're back with the offender. And people don't understand that. So if she doesn't care about it, why should we, the jurors, care about it, right? But we know from all our training that that's part of the cycle of abuse, is like trying to there's so many reasons why domestic violence victims don't leave. And as prosecutors, there are times when a victim may not want to go forward any longer, but because of the danger that she may face or the public may face, we feel it important to proceed. Now, there are times when we also try to listen to a victim, and maybe we try to get offender into programs and services because they want to stay together as a family unit. But that it's just it's difficult to move forward with a trial when your victim may not be fully on board, or just have trouble with remembering things, or maybe even doesn't want to say something out of fear of the person sitting there at the table. And I think jurors don't understand that. I mean, specifically with strangulation, when people think you've been strangled, they think you have to be up against the wall and your legs dangling and you die, right? It's interesting that when the judge reads the actual instructions, the term strangulation is not in the instructions at all. It's basically impeding someone's breathing. But it's so dangerous. So I think perhaps the jury instruction or the law itself, I don't think it should be called strangulation, quite frankly. I think that's the problem. I think people have a picture in their head of what being strangled is.
Yep. And what you're saying is that you all come to the table with a trauma-informed background, that you can't pick a whole jury full of trauma-informed people who have spent time knowing and understanding either what it's like or understanding what a victim goes through.
Right.
It's tough work, I would imagine, to be prosecuting something and then having the victim say, I'm good, there's no need to continue prosecuting.
Right.
And then you have to decide whether it would be safest to continue.
Right. That's exactly the dilemma we face.
I think there's another area, too, that would be great to have a little more public awareness about, is the extortion that's happening online with kids. It's a big problem, especially with boys today. So they get spoofed or whatever online by an adult who says, "Hey, who poses as a teenage girl and says, if you send me a picture, I'll send you a picture." And our brains are not fully formed at that time. We don't think about, as you said, what happens next. Then they send the picture. Next thing you know, they threaten them with you, and you will get in trouble. And I mean, there have been a number of suicides in a matter of hours where this has been what happened. And I just think parents, if they have daughters, it's probably on their radar, but if they have sons, it's not. And it is horrible the stories you hear of, less than a few hours later, this boy killed himself because he thought there was no other way. So parents need to be educated on that. Like, tell your kids whatever they do, it's okay for them to talk to you about it. Don't ever go to this length. That just, I think, is something too where we need like a real campaign of public awareness about it, because it's pretty prevalent, sadly.
You have a whole online. Do you have like a data team that goes after that type of crime?
Oh, we have
That's
forensics.
Yeah, we have our digital forensics unit that will get tips on like child pornography and such. But typically, when this type of thing happens, it nearly always comes back to somebody overseas. Russia, Africa, many countries in Africa and in the Middle East that they're really targeting our population all over the United States. To try to get money, and sometimes they do get money out of it. And sometimes, unfortunately, like Deanna said, it ends much more horribly.
It's wild. Again, though, it comes from, like, the parenting. Like, your kid didn't feel confident enough to come to you to tell you something. Like, it starts at home. What are we doing? Like, I think parents is too much on their phones too. Get off your phone. Be attentive. Ask how your kid's day was at school. Ask what they learned. Ask who they talked to. Talk to your kids. A lot of this stuff will stop. A lot of this stuff will stop if we just, maybe we need to offer some parenting programs. And, a lot of times the papers that your mom sent me, a lot of times, well, that's what I use for my son. When I speak to him and talk to him about certain things, I use a lot of the psychology behind it.
Yeah. My mom's a professor of psychology.
Oh, okay.
So she sends us very practical
There were two
practical things.
Cumberland
Send
County
me that.
cases of that. And I mean,
13-year-old.
in Cumberland County, the one boy was, an athlete, and the one was a football coach's son. It was in the news over in Shippensburg. So, I mean, it's not even the kids that you'd necessarily think are that disconnected. But, it's you just never know what's going on those screens, and that's the thing. You really got to be in your kids' business if they,
All in it.
especially if they have connection, a phone. And even if they don't, they're going to go on somebody else's phone.
Yeah.
My son has an iPad, and he plays Roblox, and I've seen all this like sex trafficking, child pornography, pedophiles, and things on this, creating certain rooms that he can go into and talk to these random grown men. So like I'm talking to his mom about deleting the app. I don't care how much money we spent on Robux, delete the app. Right. We don't need that. Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, we need to do this again, but I want to end on a positive note. It just because there's lots more we could talk about, and I appreciate you both really opening our eyes to all of the type of work that you do, not just what we see at a press conference, but all of the work behind the scenes, which is vast. So what I'd like from both of you is just 3, 5, whatever timeline down the road. What do you see for our Lancaster County in terms of community safety, victim restoration? Like, what do you see in these next couple of years that you would be really proud of? Like, where are we headed in terms of the good work we're doing?
I would be really proud if our overdose numbers stay low like they are. And, I don't know that we're ever going to get rid of them. But we've made a lot of great inroads in that. And I think if we could continue that, I think that would be great. I would be proud if our prison population is lower. I think that's a measure of success. And I would also be proud if my office was up to full staff.
Yes. Yes. Enough people to do the work.
Right.
Deanna?
I would have to say I think it would be a huge success if more people knew about victims' rights. It's come a long way, even within our own office in the time that I've been with the county. Our prosecutors are pretty well versed in it now, and they know, I cannot do that. I have to wait for this from the victim. But our judges could still use some training on, and judges at all levels. I'm not just talking about common pleas level, and the public, so that if you have a friend that's a victim, you can kind of dispel some of those myths that are out there and say, hey, wait a minute, that's not how this is supposed to work. So that would be, to me, something that would benefit all of us.
It's certainly, this has been a kickoff point for me in learning about that, and even in just getting ready for today. Well, Deanna, District Attorney Adams, Nate, thank you all so much for being here today. This has really been a fun time, and I hope you'd be willing to come back and have more discussion in the future.
Yeah.
Cool.